Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Budgeting 101. I'm Jay Copeland, and I'll be presenting session 2 of our Budgeting 101 5-part series today. We're going to be talking about creating a budget. So, in order of the interest of time, let's keep this going. So, what is a budget? A budget is essentially just a spending plan. It's nothing to be scared of. Anyone can do budgeting. Its goals are very simple. You're becoming aware of your expenses in contrast to your income. So that's how much of your money is going out versus how much of your money is coming in. And develop a plan to spend below your means. I'd like to emphasize that you want to spend below your means. Just because you're making $50 a week or whatever doesn't mean you want to be spending $50 extra a week. If you have the ability to put some of that aside for what we call a rainy day, in the event that you need a little bit of extra money to help with an unforeseen expense, you want to be doing that. So setting yourself up for success looks like spending below your means if possible. And everything that we're going to be working towards through these presentations is finding a way to spend below your means. So keep that in mind as your overall target is you want to be spending less than what you are bringing in so that you can start with a savings or sort of investing plan for your future. All right. So again, why do you want to spend below? Spending within your means or breaking even doesn't prepare you for the future in any way. You're not set up well for unforeseen circumstances. If something comes along that is a good opportunity for you, you may not have the extra set aside to take advantage of that situation. Spending below your means you have ensured that you have some sort of money set aside that you can make work for you. You want to make sure that your money is working for you, not against you. Ultimately, you want to be able to find ways to sort of put your money aside in a way that's going to help you better in the future. So we've talked about it in the last slide. It's also important security for those rainy day scenarios. Maybe you own a car and maybe that car breaks down and it's the way that you primarily get back and forth to school. Or maybe there's an unforeseen sort of medical situation that you need to take care of. You don't want to find yourself in financial jeopardy because you haven't sort of prepared for that situation if you were able to. So, in order to look at this fully, we talk about our income versus our expenses. By now, you should have an idea of what your monthly expenses are, as we covered them in the last session. So hopefully you've taken some time to either track your spending for a month or looked over your previous month's spending to see what your spending looks like on average and how you afford the things that you're spending money on. You'll want to identify your sources of income, not credit. I'd like to, specify that there is a difference between income and sort of credit, that you have access to money that is being lent to you. So income includes like income from any jobs that you may have, scholarships or bursaries that you've received, and other sources such as like an allowance if you've been given one or money has been sort of set aside for you. It does not include things like loans. So any student loans you might have received, whether from a bank or OSAP or a student line of credit or any credit cards. These are actually expenses that we're going to discuss sort of in more detail later. So let's compare. Do the simple math. Subtract your monthly expenses from your monthly income. Are you gaining or losing money? If you find that you're losing money, review your expenses. Find sources of overspending. So basically what you want to do here is, if you find that you're coming up with like a negative balance, you're going to want to review your expenses that you've had within a month. And this is going to be individual for all of us. You want to find sources where you're overspending or could potentially correct your spending with like a cheaper, less expensive option that you can replace it with. Or if it's something that's like more of a want versus a need in life, potentially getting rid of that expense or finding an alternative to it. So most extra expenses are occurring in the entertainment or leisure area or eating out categories of your spending as a student. At least that's what I found is typical of most students that I talk to, and was definitely my greatest source of expenses personally. It's hard to resist the delicious foods that exist in Toronto. And, that was a large part of my social life, was heading out with friends and, having a meal together or, some other activity that we needed to spend money on. So Mitigate these expenses by finding ways that you can um, do an alternative where, like, for instance, in the eating out, entertainment, leisure category, cooking your own food and finding cheaper or free leisure options. So what this may look like for you is like, do your friends and you get together instead of going out and do like a potluck style meal, or, on a weekly basis, do you meal prep together so that you have lunches taken care of? And that can be a great community learning experience where you're actually teaching yourself some quality life skills and learning things about your friends that you may not have known. So it can be a very positive leisure activity in itself that's free, but also accomplishes the task of reducing your costs in the entertainment and leisure area, as well as eating out, where you're buying groceries instead. And this can actually have a significant impact on your monthly expenses. So if you find that there's specific areas that you are encountering sort of trouble in, what you want to do is set limits in those areas. So if you have a weekly spending limit on, food, what is that going to be? Is it $60 and I commit to not going over it? And how do I support that? So if it's possible, if you're finding that, you're losing more money than you want to be, things that you may want to consider are there additional work opportunities or employment opportunities that are an option for you? Can you get jobs that are supported through like your school or courses or things that might assist you in sort of mitigating that financial burden? So let's look a little at recurring fees right now. A common source of financial drain. This is where people say that they're being nickel and dimed. Is recurring fees. So things that have monthly subscription fees like Netflix, Amazon, or your Crave subscriptions. We all love our Netflix binging, but it does cost us regularly. Personally, I'm looking at like Netflix, Spotify, cell phone fees, things like that are constant sources of regular monthly fees. So your cell phone is a big one of them that we will sort of talk to more in depth on our sort of fifth presentation, where we go into a little bit of tips and tricks on how to mitigate that. But people's cell phones in Canada, especially, we have some of the highest cell phone rates in the world, are huge. So that is one area that you can look at reducing your fees by up to $50 a month in, because a lot of us anticipate having a much larger data usage than we actually tend to use. And that ends up being just a drain that we don't really take into account on a monthly basis that could be the money could be put to better use elsewhere. Another thing is like online gaming. If you have recurring monthly fees for your gaming accounts or subscription, and then things like bank account service charges. So ask for a student account. Go to your bank and talk about like, what can I get for reduced fees on my accounts? Where am I losing my money on like a monthly basis? And have someone review things like, when your credit cards are getting charged to you for carrying a balance. Simply Financial is an institution that has, I believe, 0 student fees for their student accounts. So it's something that you may want to consider looking into things like that, so that you're not being nickel and dimed on your fees for your financial institution. So let's do a quick review. Take a look at how many of your expenses were wants versus needs. Take a brief look based on what we've sort of talked about as to what changes you can make to work towards spending below your means. Again, I'd like to emphasize that we are looking at spending below our means. And if cutting spending isn't an option, what opportunities can you explore to increase your income? Perhaps they're within your not your financial institution, but your post-secondary institution, or perhaps they are, some alternative, outside of the institution job that you could use to make some additional money on. So a couple of places that here at Humber College we have to assist you financially that many people don't take advantage of and should definitely look into taking advantage of for financial assistance are Humber scholarships and bursaries. And if you're interested in working with the institution, the Humber Work Study webpage. All right, so I'd like to say thank you, and we'll be continuing with our third part of the series next. And you can look forward to some more great information there. Thank you for joining us today, and hopefully this has helped. All right, again, I'm Jay Copeland, and we'll see you next time.